So the first one is from Riley Gale, 33. Thank you so much for tweeting in again. And he has said, first things, wow, 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 wow. Lots of wows, big capital letters. But my question is Seb back?
Very reasonable.
Yeah, after watching that race, this is exactly the kind of questions I want to see. So he said, first thing, wow, 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 wow. But my question is Seb back to his best? Will this hurt Max or motivate him? In my opinion, it will motivate him because because Lewis got no points. So the first question is Seb back? Alex, is Seb back? Yes or no?
Well, is Seb back to his best? Is what they're asking.
Is Seb back to his best?
I mean, back to his best. I don't know. He saw some serious dominance. He's obviously in a very different car, in a slightly different era of Formula One as well. So that's hard to say for certain. But I hope that what we're seeing is a Vettel who has got all those years in Ferrari behind him. He is now, like you said before, he's a lot older and wiser. He is now himself. He's got other drivers around him that look up to him as somebody of great experience. He's obviously he's a very likable guy. He is hopefully going to use all of that, plus his ability as a driver, plus the new surrounding that he's got, to do something maybe similar to what Hamilton did with Mercedes, which is take a gamble on an up-and-coming team that has just been trying to build up and has received a whole bunch of support and funding, and now has the potential to build something that could make them championship winners, repeat championship winners. Just like what happened with Mercedes, just like what happened with Red Bull as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we'll see him get on board with. And that's the way, coming out of this weekend, the immediate feeling is that is finally where they're heading, because Aston Martin as a team, we felt were just so underwhelming and were just nowhere. Now we're seeing them get a legit podium. Even when you consider the DNFs that we saw and Hamilton obviously going out, it was still absolutely on for a great result, and both cars were doing very well. It's a long season. I think that the support that they've got as a team means that the development will continue. They've clearly diverged somewhat from the Mercedes concept that they had from before, as we've seen. They're going to have to with the change in this regulations, because we saw how much it hurt them. So I hope so. I hope that we do see Seb back to, I don't know about his best, but certainly back to Vettel 4.0.
Oh, blimey. Yeah, we'll drop the 0.0s, because if we talk about Bottas, we'll probably be on Bottas 11.0 or whatever it is right now. Is Seb back? I just want to echo everything you said. He's in a good place. It feels like he's in a good place, and the feedback to the team about the car is really nice to hear. It's really reassuring that they've turned that car around, and hopefully it just wasn't track specific. In a couple of weeks' time, we're going to France, and it's a completely different track, and so we'll see how the team fares out there. But I'm hoping for them to stay in the top 10 and get double points finishes quite consistently throughout the season. The next part of that question was, will this hurt Max or motivate him more? I think that's with regards to Max's DNF. Will it hurt him or motivate him more? I think I'm going to take a stab at answering this. I think initially Max was absolutely devastated because Lewis was going to overtake him in the championship, and it was through no fault of his own. So yes, that would have been soul destroying. And I don't think initially it would have motivated him. However, if once time goes on and you can reflect upon the incident, of course, I think he would have drawn motivation from that about how good that Red Bull was. I don't think he's hurting too much now, because Hamilton obviously didn't score any points and everything stayed exactly the same at the top. Nevertheless, he could have scored 15. He could have brought home 26 points today, and Hamilton could have brought home none. So who knows what could have happened if the cards were played any differently. But I think Max is all right. It would have hurt more if Hamilton didn't bin it into turn one. So I think he's not doing too bad, and I think both teams have got away with it this week.
If we know anything about Max Verstappen, it's that he just is always the absolute maximum performance that he can give. He is leading the championship. Red Bull are leading the championship. He's probably more motivated now than he's ever been at any point in his career. So I think that what we saw today was, before the accident, a just emblematic sort of, I hesitate to say easy win, because there's nothing easy about doing it at all. But, comparatively, this was going to be a flyaway win for Max because he was flawless all weekend. So I think he has every reason to be the most confident man on the grid right now.
He was always in control with regards to the pace, with regards to the car, strategy. At no point was he ever out of his depth in that car. It is honestly such a shame to see his race come to an end through no fault of his own. And Pirelli really needs to have a hard look at those tyre compounds and make sure that if they're suggesting compounds, they need to go the distances they suggest. It'll be very interesting in the coming weeks because it won't be a quick statement coming from Pirelli. It will be a thorough investigation, and it'll be interesting to see what they say going forward. I'm a little bit worried. I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I've been a little bit worried that they might start resuggesting tyre compounds for the rest of the season, move them up to a harder tyres, harder tyre sets for a couple of races, or maybe reconsidering just because you've had some accidents, just because you've had a couple of blowouts on one track. I really hope. I don't know. In one way, I want them to stick with what they've said because it was good racing. We had multiple strategies going on, but equally, tyres should not fail. So they need to make sure that doesn't happen. But the answer isn't by making them all harder and confirming one-stop strategies because that's not racing. That's just boring. So I don't know how you fix it, but that's what I want to be fixed.
Yeah, towing the line between entertainment and safety always.
Yeah,
the tough job.
Absolutely.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not us.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for your questions and comments there, Riley Gale 33 on Twitter. Next, we have RPM legend Dave Doherty, who got in touch with us, as he often does. Thanks very much, Dave. Good to hear from you. He asks us your thoughts on Vettel and Gasly. Now, we've talked quite a bit about Sebastian Vettel. I don't really have anything to add. But Gasly, we have not really mentioned as much. Now, he had a bit of an underrated weekend, really, because this guy... he qualified P4? Yeah, P4. Absolute monster lap. That AlphaTauri, he just seems to be able to extract the absolute maximum from it.
It's the Honda engine.
And the Honda engine, of course, yeah. That VTEC kicked in. And, of course, he's been pretty damn good so far this season. I feel like he's been a mixture of unfortunate and a little clumsy in places like when, in Bahrain, he kind of tapped his wing on Ricciardo. He just got a bit too close. Like, need to be a little bit more careful because he clearly had a lot of pace. But thus far, his results have been pretty strong. The AlphaTauri isn't exactly, it's a decidedly midfield car at the moment. I know that there's been some talk of it maybe even getting close to challenging Red Bull, and I think that I've said something similar in hope that it does, in hope that we get more cars fighting for the top. And also, I just really I quite like AlphaTauri as a team, and when they were Toro Rosso as well, I've always quite liked them as a team, sort of highly technical underdogs in a way, and fighting their way out of that position as the B team. They're kind of really trying to legitimize themselves, and I like Franz Tost, and I like their drivers, and so Gasly is a very exciting prospect. He always seems to be in a position to cause a bit of an upset. This is now his third podium with that team, and I think that we'll see at least one more this season. Yeah.
I don't have anything to add apart from, like you said, he's had a fantastic race weekend. He's had a really good season, and also his teammate had a good race as well, which is really good to see. We haven't really spoken about Yuki at all. Yeah, we haven't really spoken about him at all this podcast, but actually he's had a rough couple of races. And it's good to see that he's got his head down, and apparently he's been putting in a lot of hours into the simulator, getting a better feel of how that car works. Obviously, a complete
lifestyle changes as well, apparently. Supposedly he's really trying to change his approach and changes. He was still getting a little bit aggro on the radio.
It was a little bit, but he's young and learning.
But he didn't swear.
No.
He just told his engineer to shut up, which is not quite as bad.
Yeah. Not quite as bad, but still probably not what you want to be heard, not what you want to be hearing. But as for Gasly, really good weekend. Like you said, has a tendency just to slip it into P3 occasionally or slip it into the podium because he's just quietly consistent and knows when to get his head down and when to stay out of trouble. And that's exactly what he did this weekend, which is all he had to do. So great race from him. And the AlphaTauri really needed those points. Yes, it's revived. Hopefully this revives that team a little bit and they can push on a little bit in the next couple of races and score similar points.
All right. So,
thank you very much,
Dave.
And on to the final question of the week from Scott Hayes 20. Thank you very much for getting in contact, Scott. Do you think Hamilton pushed a little too hard when he made that mistake, or was it down to the tyres? Now, we've covered this quite extensively 20 minutes ago, probably. And we think it was obviously down to accidental driver error. It looks like Alex has looked into it, and it looks like he accidentally knocked that switch at the start of that, at the beginning of the restart or just before, which engaged all those extra modes, moving those tire pressures and tire, differential into the front, and had that colossal luck up into turn one. So as much as it was an accident, still driver error. Very unusual for Hamilton. And who knows, it might be the start of a couple more errors this season. Not the flawless Hamilton. Likewise, it's not been the flawless Mercedes we're used to. Cracks are starting to show. The pressure is on. Have you got anything else to add with regards to that mistake?
That he must have been pushing to some degree, though, because obviously he arrived on the grid with his brakes smoking. It looked like his car was like on fire on the grid. And as he pulled away, it was like this billowing of smoke that he came through.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
So he was obviously pushing those brakes to some point. He wanted to get them really warmed up, ready for turn one, so he could brake as late as possible. Because we saw that was what he did as well. He went up on the inside, got a great launch, and tried to brake late. And then when he actually put the brakes on, they just slammed on. And then he just was only ever going to go straight on. So yeah, obviously there was some kind of pushing. Maybe that sort of. He focused too hard on that one thing and it caused some kind of error. We don't know. It's all happening in such a short space of time. But yeah, an uncharacteristic mistake from Hamilton, and the rest is history.
I'm sure a lot of drivers going into those final 2 laps thought, I can make a lot of places up here if I just play my cards right. So emotions would have been everywhere. If you're P10 or lower, you've got absolutely nothing to lose. You're at the end of the race. What's the worst which can happen? You DNF and score no points. You cost your team a couple of £1 million, but you've tried. And if you're running in P10 or P9 or P8, you could be in P5 in a couple of corners time. So you've just got to put your right foot down and try your hardest. And that's what Hamilton. Fair play to him. He got a great start. It just went too far into turn one. It was quite lucky actually looking back on it. I know. Sorry, Scott. We're going off on a bit of a tangent again, but it's a good job that Hamilton did get a good start, because if he was behind Perez and had that lockup, he wouldn't have made that corner, and he could have easily collected another car or two and caused a bit of an incident going into turn one, and that probably would have been the end of the race. So it was lucky that he did get a good start and just completely and went straight on and avoided every single car, because that could have been difficult to avoid.
Yeah, we saw a little demo for the sprint races, didn't we? Just 2 laps.
Yeah. Maybe we only need like 5 lap sprint races, because that was really entertaining. I'm not sure about these. Is it 100 kilometers, 1/3 of a race distance?
Yeah, something like that.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Well,
we saw a sprint race of sorts.
We saw a rapid sprint race, and I loved it. So more of that, please.
Yeah, thanks very much everyone for getting in touch, and you can find us at RacePerMinute on Twitter, or you can email us info@raceperminute.com.